Self? Oh shit.
Zach, I'm so sorry to hear this, but
What?
I don't believe you.
Why?
There's no way in hell I can believe you.
This all sounds made up.
Yeah.
Shrewsbury.
How?
They're lining up in
Shrewsbury, look it up.
Shrewsbury, England.
You all have those fancy phones I see you playing with all day. Look it
You
up.
think the only motherfucker in abs is Shrewsbury, England? Dude?
Let's talk about Jack the Ripper. Let's talk about all of his
Let's bring it back to
victims,
reality. Exactly.
Right? So I think he might
all
be
day.
Jack the Ripper.
No.
Yeah, and I have evidence. I have evidence.
Wait, you do?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
What do you have? What do you have?
Over 200 people who have also been said to be Jack the Ripper.
Over 200.
See?
Oh, over 200.
What?
Say.
no.
You guys haven't heard of the Jack the Ripper suspects?
No.
What the fuck was that?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, welcome.
There are over 100 suspects that are believed to be maybe affiliated with Jack the Ripper, but over 200 just casually dropped on the ground like, I don't care about you, you don't care about me. So of the 100 suspects in the infamously unsolved Jack the Ripper saga, some of them have been vetted by the world's highest police and intelligence agencies. The rest are downright silly. So going back to the Don't F with Cats, right, which is a new
yeah.
documentary.
No,
Can't watch it.
Nope,
Can't
nope,
watch it.
Nobody, nope.
You know the drill. Internet sleuths get on their preferred internet aggregate sites, which collate websites into a neat bundle
Like kayak.
of specific facts and vague half-truths. And then the
Wait, there's
Eureka-
half-truths on the internet?
Ooh, yeah. And
No.
alternative facts.
wait.
Quarter truths.
Yep.
And
16th
lots of opinions.
And then everyone hits that eureka moment. Oh, I know now conclusively who Jack the Ripper was. And then we have books being written ad infinitum. And then here we are with me saying, there are 200 suspects, because anyone can write a book about it. So of these books that get published to varying degrees of success, you have some that are shamefully chided for their gulf of vision and haphazardly investigated, in air quotes, journalistic endeavors. And then you have the ones that are actually backed by contemporaneous evidence of the day.
Right.
So before we go into that, let's break down competence, because this was a key theme that I saw in all of the suspects. It all starts off with the first level of competence, and that is unconscious incompetence.
Okay.
Angela, Kaz, Mandaddy, what do you think unconscious incompetence is?
You're too asleep to do something properly?
Okay,
It's like instinct, right? Like unconscious
you're getting close.
competence. Like you don't know you're good at something. It's just your skill, like an inborn skill. You just know how to make that sugar.
You are unaware of the skill and your lack of proficiency. You don't know what you're not expected of. So you're gonna show up day one. I gotta make the sugar. So this is the worst suspects' names thrown around in the category of Jack the Ripper.
Charlie Sheen.
I will start with this. Richard Mansfield, who was a goddamned actor who appeared in a theatrical production of The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Critics said, man, he murders so good. I wonder if he's Jack the
actual
Ripper.
Jack
Oh
the
my
Ripper.
God.
He's just doing it so well on stage. He just has to be rehearsing somewhere.
Yep.
Oh, people.
Another one, Charles Swinburne, an alcoholic and epileptic who claimed to be a leading expert on the burgeoning BDSM scene, who claimed to have raped several people
Whoa.
and was an all-around turd with no convincing evidence to Whitechapel.
That's still a horrible person, so let's back it up.
Lock him up.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, he deserves it.
Madame Helena Blavatsky, who had no history of violence, but she just happened to live in London during the time of the murders.
Oh.
That'll teach her.
Yep.
Nothing else
All of
with
them?
regards to
Yeah.
evidence, so nothing. He said
Yeah.
everyone
Yeah,
in
she was
conversation.
there.
Just you. I just looked over and I saw her face and I thought, that's it.
Look at that ripper face.
Resting Ripper face.
Resting Ripper face.
And lastly, an unidentified primate
What?
who had a
What?
thirst
All
for
right.
bloodletting of human beings.
Well,
The best.
An,
you don't know what they're training them?
an
This is true.
unidentified
Well, humans
primate
are primates, right?
who had a thirst for
Yeah.
bloodletting of human
Sure.
beings. Now let's move on to the second level of competence. If the first was unconscious incompetence, you are unaware of the skill and your lack of proficiency. Level 2 should be what? Again, the root will be conscious and competence in each one. If the first one was unconscious incompetence, what would the second one be?
Conscious incompetence.
Conscious incompetence. You are aware of the skill, but not yet proficient.
Okay.
And now we have these names. added to the list of suspected Jack the Rippers. Herman Webster Mudgett, a.k.a. H.H. Holmes.
H.H. Holmes?
Oh, yeah.
America's
That's right.
first serial killer.
Mudgett.
Despite my brother Dirt McCoy's fascination with him, he should never be considered a suspect, as he never conclusively, via evidence, visited nor resided in London. So we're getting closer, though. He was America's first serial killer. Lewis Carroll, author
What?
Nice.
of which book?
Through the Looking Glass.
Glass Alice in Wonderland.
Via rearranging the letters in his paragraphs, he confesses, "I am Jack the Ripper."
What?
Yeah.
So
He
they
alludes.
found an anagram?
It's amazing.
But they rearranged
rearranging the letters
They're
in
like,
his.
So you decided to
Oh.
rearrange organs
Yeah.
in people. You're like,
Yeah.
hey, let's put the kidney where the brain is.
Apparently, the confession is the butcher of Whitechapel, but he did write Jack the Ripper, light-hearted friend.
What?
And then it ends there. Level 1 is unconscious incompetence, and then we have conscious incompetence. What would level 3 be?
Conscious competence.
Conscious competence. You are able to use the skill, but only with effort. So this is where we get closer to the prime suspects. Prince Albert Victor.
Was he in a can?
He was not. Prince Albert in a can, no.
Do you have a bunch of piercings on his dick?
I think he did. Yes. Wait,
Think
hold on.
about that being your legacy.
me
He's
look
up there in heaven or
Yeah.
wherever. It's like, so what do they remember about me? Oh, you don't want to know.
Yeah, he had a lot of
How
piercings.
into industrial are you?
So, Prince Albert Victor, back in 1970, he was suspected in the murders after a claim he was, quote, driven mad with syphilis, unquote.
Ah,
The
happens.
suggestion was widely dismissed. We are no closer in this phase than any of the other ones, but we are getting a little bit more tied with that. So that was a person of royal family heritage
Prince Albert.
who was driven mad with syphilis, and he could have gotten away with it. Number 2, Joseph Barnett, former lover of Mary Kelly, who was the last victim, right?
Okay, yep.
Oh.
The idea here is that he butchered his former beau and then, for whatever reason, killed as many prostitutes as he could. So he
Mary
just
Kelly
went
was
on
the
the-
You got a flavor for it, you know, got a taste for it, and like, hey, this is cool.
or practiced before Mary Kelly, because
working up
Nichols,
to it.
Nichols was the first one, right?
Right, and Kelly was the last one.
Yep.
So he worked his way up to killing his wife.
David Cohen, whose incarceration at the Colney Hatch Lunatic Asylum corresponded with the end of the murder spree. No other evidence.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Wow.
This is how
Okay.
just lackadaisical, just people can assume someone like was murdering people for no reason. James Maybrick, he was a cotton merchant, and he traveled from the States
Shady.
to the UK. Later, a diary surfaced allegedly belonging to him in which he detailed the deaths of the 5 prominent victims. He also had a pocket watch inscribed with "I am Jack" in the initials of the 5 attributed to Jack the Ripper.
Oh.
This
kind of a
claim,
thing.
although plausible, doesn't hold up because the person who first presented the story changed their story figuratively gazillions of times.
Oh. So not the Cotton Man.
Not literally gazillion of times, figuratively.
Figuratively.
Okay,
Thank you. We now move on to the 4th level, competence. So unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetence, conscious competence. What would the 4th one be?
Mastery.
Godhead.
Unconscious competence. Performing the
Whoa.
skill becomes automatic.
Automatic. Don't think about it.
In
Muscle
flow.
memory.
All
Yeah.
of the 4 suspects I'm about to mention could be Jack the Ripper.
Oh, right, see?
We have suspect 1, Montague Druitt.
Montague.
He was the son of a prominent.
Chill.
Representing Montagues over here.
I'm trying to get through my story. Montague Druitt was the son of a prominent surgeon and officer of the law and was very well educated. He was an assistant schoolmaster who, the newspaper said, got into serious trouble in 1888. A month later, his body was removed from the Thames, and shortly before that, the final killing took place in the Jack the Ripper episode. So, here's why it could be him. From allthat'sinteresting.com, 3 years later in 1891, a member of parliament from West Dorchester, England, began saying that the Ripper was, quote, the son of a surgeon, unquote, who had committed suicide on the night of the last murder. So there's a documentation directly linking him. However, he suffered from severe depression and wrote in his suicide note he feared he would end up like his mother, who had several mental breakdowns. So he consciously took his own life. The son of a surgeon, he had no medical background. You know, he didn't train in it. It's just his dad was a surgeon.
Sorry, but a lot of common stuff with like the whole mom thing if she had a mental illness.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Number 2, we have George Chapman, one of the most likely suspects, apprenticed as a surgeon.
Oh.
While married, he had an affair with another Polish woman who he later married as wifey number 2 and later moved to New Jersey in 1891. Now that's after the 5th murder, correct?
Yes.
During this time, he had an argument with his second wife in the States and calmly described to her how he would kill, dismember, and dispose of her body.
Yikes.
Just described it to her.
Damn.
That'll shut you up. That'll shut you
I'll
up
tell you
right there.
exactly what I'm going to do.
Yep. After that relationship ended, he met
For some reason.
a divorcee who included him in her will. You know where this is going from here.
Oh.
He again just
Stupid.
continued to abuse and beat her and continued with his infidelities. In 1897, he poisoned her with tartar emetic, which is similar to arsenic. She died, and then Chapman took her life savings and her last name of Chapman,
Oh.
further
Clever dick.
abusing and murdering 2 other mistresses. When these bodies were exhumed, they found that they all died from a form of arsenic poisoning, and he was hanged in 1903. Now, his second wife said, while living in Whitechapel, he would venture out into the night at all hours. He was also a known murderer who picked women as his target.
So that would be him.
However, he might not have known English well enough to seduce prostitutes and was never an official suspect.
You don't really.
It sounds
You
kind of
don't.
creepy.
You don't really
Yeah.
need to seduce a prostitute.
How?
That's true.
Oh,
pretty much-
my.
You just kind of need to
That's not really.
jangle the
Don't
coin
really need
purse
to
a
have
little
game
bit.
when it comes to
Yeah.
prostitutes.
Yeah,
They're
you just.
That is true.
Kind of money driven, it seems.
I got 2 more. Thomas Neil Cream had medical training and murdered his mistress, who was pregnant with his child. So
Oh.
immediately he was an asshole.
Double killer.
He used chloroform,
Oh, Lord.
Oh.
which was his medical specialty. He then
He
moved.
specialized in chloroform.
Yeah.
Don't date people like that. That's on your. It's like, once you. I'm really into chloroform.
Really into chloroform.
Oh, man. That would be a very
Specialize in
massive red flag.
Yeah. So you're a doctor. I'm an anesthesiologist. Check please.
Kinda.
Amateur.
Kinda.
Gotta go.
Amateur anesthesiologist.
I dabble.
Improvisational.
So Thomas Neil Cream then moved to the edge of Chicago.
Wait, his last name was Cream?
Yep. He then moved to the edge of Chicago performing illegal abortions for prostitutes.
Jesus.
He was finally caught in 1881. So
Which
after
explains the womb stealing.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point, Angela. So
Womb
he
stealing.
was finally caught in 1881 after he murdered the husband of his mistress. He was given a life sentence, but it was commutated to 10 years. He gained his father's inheritance while in prison, went out, moved to London, where he again poisoned prostitutes.
Wow.
He was known as the Lambeth Poisoner, but while being hanged for his newer crimes in 1893, his last words per his executioner was, "I am Jack the..."
Oh, really? That's a cliffhanger for you?
As his last words.
It's going to give the guy another syllable
Exactly.
or two?
Why he is...
We've got a schedule. I'm sorry. That sounded really interesting.
The mayor looks at the guy on the switch like, dude,
What? He's like,
Two
you
more
could have
seconds.
waited a little bit. He goes,
Come
2
on.
more seconds every time. Harry,
I'm sorry, my hands
don't
are
use my
sweating."
real name.
You're such a psycho.
What do you think I can hold on?
You're such a psycho, Harry.
Why he could not be Jack the Ripper? Well, duh, he was in Illinois during most of the Whitechapel murders.
Oh,
So
maybe his
the-
doppelganger.
The fact that we're even bringing him up in the most competent of suspects tells you they have no clear alibi besides Chapman. Totally the Ripper. Totally the Ripper.
Just is. He just is.
Last one, we have Thomas Cutbush. Thomas
That would be a little on the nose,
What?
wouldn't it?
Thomas Haynes
Bush.
Cutbush. Spelled
Oh,
exactly
man.
as it.
The detective's curse. It's always right under your nose.
You never
It's like,
know
Could it be
Kevin
Cutbush?
McUterus
No. Too easy.
Uterus.
Cutbush studied medicine in London before suffering violent delusions, presumably goes right back around by contracting syphilis.
Oh,
In
lots of
19
syphilis going around.
In 1891, he was sent to Lambeth Infirmary. Suspecting doctors were poisoning, he escaped and attacked 2 women with knives.
Oh.
He was later apprehended.
Why did he say it like Jerry Lewis?
With the ladies
awesome.
with the knife and in the stabby.
Did you
Two
expect
women
that,
with
Kaz?
knives.
You didn't expect that, did
That
you?
was awesome.
He was later apprehended and sent to Broadmoor High Security Hospital, where he died in 1903. A book was written about his suspected involvement in the Ripper slayings, and public interest was satiated. But aside from his mental defects, it is not widely believed he was associated with any Whitechapel murder. However, he might have had syphilis.
There you go.
And those are the suspects. I didn't get through all 200, but I got through 15.
That's impressive.
Thank you.
I'll give you that.
No, so none of them were Zach the Stripper.
No, that was me.
No,
That
was
one
Zach the
was me.
Stripper.